could, speak, speech,
sprachen,
and PARLARE have a common Turkic origin. The Turkic root, par, to shine, behind the English words, speak, speech, German word, SPRACHE, and Italian word, PARLARE. The etymologies traditionally presented in Western sources for the English words speak, speech, German SPRACHE, and Italian PARLARE are built more on speculative reconstructions than on tangible linguistic evidence. These explanations, both semantically and phonetically, are inadequate and appear to deliberately obscure the true origin. The ancient Turkic root par, to shine, to emit light, to make visible. This article demonstrates that these core words of Western languages are directly linked to Turkic, and that mainstream Western etymology has intentionally concealed this connection. The problem with Proto-Indo-European reconstructions. The foundational lexicon of Western civilization is systematically tied to a hypothetical language called Proto-Indo-European, PIE. This language has no single written attestation. Its existence rests entirely on the speculative constructs of philologists. Under such circumstances, etymological explanations risk becoming ideological fabrications rather than scientific findings. How Western sources present it. Speak and speech, English, and SPRACHE, German, are repeatedly traced back to Proto-Germanic sprachana. Parlare, Italian, is linked to medieval Latin parabolare, itself claimed to come from ancient Greek paraballo. These chains of derivation are weak both phonetically and semantically. Explaining to speak as, to put side by side, parable flow, or to make noise, is not true linguistics, it is an ideologically motivated distortion. The real origin, Turkic par. The Turkic root par embodies the meanings, to shine, to emit light, to illuminate, to make visible. In this context, speaking is far more than the mere production of sound. It is the act of casting light into the darkness of thought, of making invisible ideas perceptible, of projecting insight as a radiant spark, a true yar, that is, beam of light. A flash of illumination that bridges mind and world. Thus, konuşmak, to speak, is not a mere phonetic event, but a metaphorical extension of par, where each spoken word is a beam of light, each utterance a fragment of clarity in the human consciousness. The semantic, phonetic, and conceptual alignment between parlamak and konuşmak is profound, revealing why this root represents the most natural and logically coherent origin for the concepts expressed in English speak and speech, German Sprache, and Italian parlare. German Sprache, supposed to be from Middle High German Sprache, from Old High German Sprache, from Proto-West Germanic Sprache, cognate with Dutch Sprach, English speech, Danish Sprog, Swedish Sprach. The par sequence is nothing but a metaphysized reflection of Turkic par. The initial S is a common prefix in Germanic word formation, or in other words, distorting original loan words into unrecognizable forms in order to claim ownership. On the loss of R phoneme, many conventional etymologies for English, speak, and speech words attempt to explain the absence of the R phoneme in the initial SPR cluster by proposing convoluted and linguistically unsupported mechanisms. For example, Wiktionary cites Hill's hypothesis that the loss of R from SPR is unparalleled and therefore requires a reconstructed Proto-West Germanic specken to negotiate, derived from Proto-Indo-European beg e to distribute with S mobile. According to this narrative, specken supposedly collapsed semantically with sprechen, to speak, less than, to crackle, prattle, and became a free variant. This explanation is fundamentally unscientific. It relies on multiple speculative leaps, an unattested pi root, a hypothetical semantic shift from to distribute to negotiate to speak, and an extraordinary assumption that an R phoneme simply vanished without any phonological precedent. No attested cognates or documented phonetic patterns support such a claim. In short, these reconstructions appear as forced, ad hoc narratives designed to justify a preconceived Proto-Germanic or Proto-Indo-European origin, rather than reflections of actual historical linguistic processes. The simplest and most phonetically, semantically, and historically coherent explanation remains the connection to the Turkic root par, to shine, to emit light, to make visible, which naturally accounts for the semantic field of speak and speech without invoking improbable sound changes or imaginary pi roots. English speak, speech, derived through the simplification of the SPR cluster. Italian parlare retains the par root in its pure form. The connection to Greek parable flow is semantically unfounded. The Turkic linguistic philosophy link. The Turkic words konuşmak, to speak, and gun ishamak, the sun shining, share a perfect phonetic, semantic, and morphological unity. When a person konuş, that is, speaks, they metaphorically shine like the sun, casting light, meaning, revealing, and creating reality, exactly the metaphor embedded in parlamak, that is, to shine. Thus, SPRACHE, speak, speech, and PARLARE derive from the Turkic par root. This borrowing occurred without acknowledgement, rendering it an act of linguistic and cultural appropriation. Western etymology's conscious omission. The Western etymological tradition systematically excludes early Turkic connections and possibilities. If accepted, these links would dismantle the independent origin narrative of Western languages and affirm the Turkic intellectual foundation of Western civilization. Phonetic evolution scheme: Turkish, par, versus Western, speech, words. Stage, period, language, form, explanation. 1. Old Turkic, 3000 BCE, par, to shine, to make visible. Base root. 2. Old Turkic derivation parla verbal form. To shine, to illuminate. 3. Contact period, pre-Proto-Germanic, spar addition of s prefix for emphasis, narrowing. 4. Proto-Germanic SPRACHE, SPRACHE shift, par right pointing arrow pr, a, plus final, k. 5. Old High German SPRACHE, language, speech, meaning established. 6. Old English sprechen from so-called Proto-Germanic into English. 7. Middle English speaken, SPR cluster simplified to SP. 8. Modern English speech current forms. 9. Medieval Latin parabolare par root retained, later borrowing. 10. Italian parlare direct from Latin, fully preserves par root. Phonetic evolution diagram, Turkic par to Western, speech, words. Par, Turkic. Parla, Turkic verb. Spar, pre-Germanic adaptation, s prefix. SPRACHE, Proto-Germanic. SPRACHE, German. Sprechen, Old English. Speak, speech, Modern English. Parabolare, Latin. Parlare, Italian. Chronology of first attestations. Language, period, form, first attestation. Early Turkic par, Sumerian early dynastic 3a period, ca. 2600–2500 BCE. Proto-Germanic Sprech no written records, reconstructed. Old English Sprechen, Speech 8th to 12th centuries. Old High German Sprache 8th to 9th centuries. Medieval Latin, Italian Parabolare, Parlare 7th to 8th centuries. Sumerian evidence, the earliest written traces of par. The Turkish root par, to shine, to emit light, to make visible, can be traced not only through Old Turkic sources but also in written Sumerian records. In Sumerian, the verb reading variants, bu7, bur2, bu7, bur2, is attested with the meaning to glow, to shine. To emit light, this root appears 26 times in texts spanning from the early dynastic 3a period, ca. 2600–2500 BCE, through the Old Akkadian, Old Babylonian, Middle Babylonian, and Hellenistic periods. Meaning, to glow, to shine, light. Akkadian equivalents, Napahu, to shine, to flare up, Noru, light. This connection further highlights the probability that the so-called Arabic word nur, light, and its derivatives are not originally Semitic, but rather stem from a much older root traceable to Old Turkic par, carrying the meanings to radiate, to shine, to emit light. The phonetic shift from p to n in some languages, coupled with the long-distance borrowing roots in the ancient Near East, suggests that the concept and term for light traveled along cultural and linguistic contact zones that predate Arabic by millennia. This challenges the common assumption that nur is purely an Arabic or Quranic innovation and instead places it within a deep, trans-Eurasian etymological network, where Turkic languages may have played a central role in shaping the lexicon of light and radiance. Attested periods. Turkic, early dynastic 3a, circa 2600–2500 BCE. Old Akkadian, circa 2350–2200 BCE. Old Babylonian, circa 2000 to 1600 BCE. Middle Babylonian, circa 1500 to 1000 BCE. Hellenistic, circa 300–100 BCE. The data demonstrate that phonetically, bur and par differ only in a single consonant shift, b versus p, a transformation frequently observed in Turkic and many other languages. Semantically, the meanings match perfectly, and morphologically, the root suggests either the same language or a closely related dialectal variant. It is therefore highly probable that bur represents either a Sumerian orthographic, phonetic variant of the Turkic par root, or a reflex from a dialectal formation of the same language. This places the Turkish par root as far back as the 3rd millennium BCE, possibly contemporaneous with, or even preceding, the invention of writing itself. Phonetic evidence, semantic logic, Turkic linguistic philosophy, and the documented chronology all converge. Western words for speech are rooted in Turkic par. This reality undermines attempts to depict Western languages, and by extension Western civilization, as independent from the Turkic linguistic heritage. The scientific evidence presented in this article reveals a striking truth. Western civilization, despite its apparent autonomy, is fundamentally built upon the foundations of the Turkic language. Without the intellectual and linguistic framework of Turkish thought, the very speech of the West would seem impossible. In essence, Western culture carries a profound, often unacknowledged debt to the Turkish language and the conceptual depth it embodies. The roots of Western expression, discourse, and reasoning are inseparable from the luminous heritage of Turkish linguistic and philosophical tradition.